Girl Power today. Hello, I'm Kendall Bryan Hunter, author of the book Consider My Servant Job, and this is Come Follow Me, Get to the Point, where I always show up, I always come prepared, we never take roll, and it's bring your own refreshments. Chapstick today. Just kidding, you shouldn't eat chapstick, and we should all cut back on the junk food. So, as I mentioned, I'm the author of the book Consider My Servant Job. Next week, get it. Time's running out. Be prepared, teach with confidence, study with confidence, and hopefully I'll be doing some shorts about the book of Job that will be appearing on YouTube. So this is the book of Esther, one of two books in the Old Testament devoted exclusively to woman. It's a you read the Bible dictionary to get the background to it, and also it's an interesting book. There's no copy of the book of Esther in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And part of the reason why that is some people think is that there's no mention of God in it. If you go read it, it's sort of a secular story. Maybe. I'll talk about it a little bit in the Doctrine section. But because it's missing these any overt reference to God. In the Apocrypha, they have these chapters called the missing chapters of the book of Esther, where they fill in and they have prayers to God, and so it sort of smooths things out. I think it's like the RSV version of the Apocrypha actually has the entire, all of them integrated into the text, so you read them at the points where they're supposed to be read within the book of Esther. So kind of a fun book. Like I said, it's one of two books along with the book of Ruth, and Ruth is my mother's name, and Esther is the name of my niece, so we're going to pay really good attention to this. That's the background. And who's the players? Well, it's Ahasuerus, or we think it's Xerxes or Artaxerxes. We're not sure which. So let's just call him the king, because we don't need to do tongue twisters today. He's the king of Persia, and his wife's name, or the queen's name, is Vashti, and she's the early feminist. She does not want to be put on display as a type of object, and we'll get to that a little bit later. You have Esther, who is one of the exiled Jews. She has her cousin, you have her cousin Mordecai, who also serves as her guardian and mentor in it. And you also have Haman, who's the early antisemite. Those are the players. The next section, the scoop section, is that the king holds this big party, and at a certain point he wants to show off his wife, Queen Vashti. She doesn't want to have any part of that. She gets fed up and turns him down. So if you remember The Wizard of Oz, General Ginger, you have sort of that type of scenario. He doesn't want all the women rising up and revolt against him. So what he does is he gets rid of the queen. He holds a beauty contest. Esther enters into the beauty contest, and she wins, and Esther becomes a new queen. However, Mordecai tells her, hide your Jewish heritage. Just keep quiet about it, and let's not cause any problems, because there's some friction between the exiled Jews and the native Persians. At the same time, you have Haman, who is a local, and his family. They're early anti-Semites. They don't like the Jews, and they're able to prevail upon the king to get him to pass a law against Jews. And this reminds us a little bit of the book of Daniel, where you have these ethnic tensions in there, and so the people pass laws against the other ethnicities. So what happens is when Mordecai learns about this, he tells Esther, okay, I told you to keep quiet about things. Now it's time to speak up. So you have that scenario where she has to touch the scepter. She dolls herself up, holds a big feast for the king just to butter him up, smooth him into this. And then she outs herself as being a Jew, and then she explains the situation with Haman. And the king sides with her and says, yeah, this is a problem. I really like you. And so what the king does is he takes Haman and hangs him on the gallows that he intended for the Jews. So he gets caught in his own snare. The Book of Mormon says, by the wicked are the wicked punished, and that's what happens. And as a result of all these events, the Jews created a new holiday called Purim. I hope I'm pronouncing it. It's Purim, excuse me. That's more Jewish pronunciation, and I have a link to it. I have a link to all the stuff below where I go into a little bit more detail. This is get to the point where I'm really quick. So that's the story in a nutshell. It's a fun story, like the Book of Ruth. It's a condensed story, and once you get past the King James English and some of the odd names, which if you read fantasy or sci-fi, you should get used to odd names. Worf, Spock, Frodo. Go on, get past it. Let's stop saying that these awkward names are an issue. We see it all the times in the movie. So let's get to the next section. That's the Doctrine section. So like I mentioned, one, this is about the power of woman and placement of woman, the value of woman in God's kingdom. Secondly, you see parallels between Joseph of Egypt and Daniel, and then the three lads in the book of Daniel, that if you're a member of the church, you're always going to rub people the wrong way, and you'll always face opposition. We are going to be different, and people are going to hate us for it. And that's the danger. Do we assimilate, or do we stay true to our covenants? Another thing, too, is the divine placement of people. And you have the same thing with the book of Ruth, where it was her hap to be in the same lot that was Boaz's field where she is gleaning. It's the same thing as where Esther was placed in a position to protect the Jews. Also, another doctrinal point is to be able to speak up. As a family proclamation talks about, we need to get involved in the political realm, and there's very good reasons for it. Sometimes people don't want to get involved in politics because it's very nasty. It's a blood sport, as Bob Woodward called it. But something we have to do. We just can't do things spiritually. We need to have the political aspect and political freedoms to do the work of Christ. Another thing to think about is Matthew 10, where Matthew 10 talks about where Christ will send a sword. We're supposed to be peacemakers, but also what we're doing causes division among people. And we have to be very careful about being Christ-like when we know that there's going to be these divisions with what we're doing as we're being true to our covenants. So I kind of slipped a little bit ahead, but the big thing about the Christ quotient is that we need to be involved politically to do the work of Christ, that we need to make sure that we're having religious freedoms, that we're voting for good candidates, that we're involved in the political process, directly or indirectly, that you're becoming informed citizens, because we need to have religious freedom. Don't get caught up in the trap that religions are just legalized hate groups. Okay, that's a trap that people fall into. It's what's called a sweeping generalization. Okay, it's not true. Yeah, it can be used as a cover, but not all religions are hate groups. We have specific beliefs. We understand Christ's atonement is infinite and eternal, and we need to have political freedom and some of these political protections in order to do the work of Christ. And that is the point.